At this point, if you could stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'd like to introduce Barb Yong, who is our moderator. She is from the League of Women Voters of LaGrange. So thank you, Barb, for being here, and let's give her a round of applause.
I'm glad you're clapping before I get started. So again, I'm Barbara Young. I am a proud member of the League from the LaGrange area, and I'd like to thank the members of the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn for the honor of being the moderator for this evening. I'd like to begin by reviewing some of the ground rules for the candidate forums. These are printed on the back of your programs, but I just want to emphasize a few points as well. First of all, every candidate who is participating here today has signed and returned the ground rules. These rules specify the format, time limits, and other rules related to the conduct of this forum. I will be responsible for enforcing these rules. The candidates drew lots to determine the order in which they give their opening statements, and thereafter, when there's more than one candidate, we'll be alternating with the questions. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute to respond to each question, and 1 minute for a closing statement. And their responses will be timed. We have these nice ladies up front that'll be holding up signs that'll tell them if they have any time left and when they're done. We ask the audience to write their questions on index cards, which volunteers will collect from you. If there's any volunteers currently here, can you raise your hand so people can see who you are? Great, thank you. Please indicate on your index card which race you'd like your question directed to. A panel of experienced league members will review the questions submitted by the audience and carefully select the questions that are appropriate and avoid duplication. We've asked the candidates, and we also ask the audience, to please keep all campaign material outside of this room. We've also asked the candidates to agree they will not use any voice, image, video, or other recording from this forum in their campaign. We also request that the audience refrain from taking pictures, photos, or videos. Tonight's forum is being live streamed on the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn Facebook page. Thank you to our videographer, Scott Hanley, of We Designed That, for doing the videography tonight. Finally, I want to emphasize how grateful we are for the candidates who've chosen to be here today. Please show these candidates your appreciation and respect. Please do not clap, cheer, boo, applaud, or otherwise vocalize your agreement or disagreement with any answer or question. Please show these candidates your appreciation for participating in today's forum. And now we'll begin. So the first race that we're going to be addressing this evening is the candidates for Illinois Representative from District 46. The incumbent, Representative Deb Conroy, could not be here tonight. She extends her apologies, and she thanks the League for the kind invitation to participate. But we do have Dr. J. Kinzler. So I'm going to begin now with his opening statement, which again is 2 minutes. Dr. Kinzler.
Thank you, Barb. And thanks, Amy, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work. And thank you all for coming. And a special thanks to Mrs. Doyle. She taught both my kids in kindergarten, and now they're all the way through college and working, and they got a great foundation with her, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Gordon J. Kinzler. I'm running for State Representative, District 46. I've been a long member of the Glen Ellyn community. I've served as the Park District. You may have seen me at other forums when we were running for those offices. Most recently, as the president of the Park District of Glen Ellyn, we actually lowered our property taxes 11% 2 years ago and another 22% this year. So if you get home, pull out your property tax bill if you live in Glen Ellyn and compare the last 3 years, and you'll see a third of your tax bill decreased, which is hardly ever seen these days in the western suburbs. A little bit more about my background. I'm a urologist. I work at Elmhurst Hospital. I've been the president of medical staff there, also the chief of surgery. I also do kidney transplants at Christ Hospital. Did one about 10 days ago. I'm also a colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. I signed up over 10 years ago at the ripe old age of 50. And other than the day I got married to my lovely wife, Jennifer, the last day of my officer's basic training was the happiest day of my life. I signed up for a 3-year stint in the Army, and the Army has a way of once they get their hands on you, they don't let you go. So I'm still in. I'm a colonel. Was just down at Fort Benning at Easter time. I'm running to basically lower our property taxes, lower our income taxes, and get rid of one-party rule by Mike Madigan. If we can win our seat and several others, we can depose him as Speaker of the House. Our founding fathers, when they first had this great idea called America, meant for you guys to go for a year or two, couple terms, and then go back home and someone else was supposed to go. That was how it's supposed to be. It's been bastardized, particularly in Illinois, since then, and I hope to hopefully change that with things like term limits as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Do
thank
we
you.
have questions?
Yep, now we'll begin with questions. And just so you can keep track, this entire portion dealing with this race will be 20 minutes, but we will leave 1 minute for a closing statement.
Okay, great.
Okay. So first question, do you support complete funding for the CHIP program, the Children's Health Insurance Program?
Yeah, you know, one of the things, you know, I'm a physician. My life dedication, some of my patients are out here, family members, some of my patients, is to kind of keep people going and extend their lives and make life quality. Illinois is a very prosperous state. You know, the good Lord put Lake Michigan right down the middle of our country, and so all commerce, east or west, has to go right through these suburbs in Chicago. So we have plenty of tax base, businesses, infrastructure, workforces to be very prosperous. What's happened lately in Illinois under the one-party rule is much of that wealth has been squandered and wasted, and that's why we have huge pension deficits. People haven't paid, Illinois hasn't paid bills for many of the different vendors for over 2 years, and I'll give you more examples of that later if I get time. So what we need to do is be able to really help the people that need help with core services, and I'm going to be a big supporter of all core services because we have the capability to truly take care of all the needy in our state, but we basically need to get rid of the people that are squandering that money that we should be using for those people.
Okay, next question. Should funding to the Capital Development Board be increased or decreased, and why?
Okay, in general, Illinois has plenty of revenue, and there's all kinds of restrictions, rules. I'll give you one good example that we dealt with in the Park District. I was the Park District president here. It's called the Illinois Prevailing Wage Act. No other surrounding state has an Illinois Prevailing Wage Act or comparable state Prevailing Wage Act. What these were done is they're put together with some of Mike Madigan and his cronies. And so any kind of project like the Park District Forest Preserve, library, they have to go through all these hoops and pay all these extra amounts of fees to get a project done. So we had a $2 million project recently in Glen Ellyn to redo the boathouse, the lake shore, and help with flooding problems. We put that bid out. 30 guys came to get that. Guess how many bids we got back? 0. Nobody took the bid, even though it was a few years ago and the economy wasn't as good. So what we did was, we had to go hire a contractor. He had to individually hire tradespeople. We got the job done, but we only got $1 million of the project done for the $2 million. So that took a lot of waste of taxpayer money because of these regulations that come from Springfield. And these are the kind of things we need to look at. Other states have looked at that and fixed them. We haven't. And I've got a whole bunch of ideas that I've seen firsthand as the Park District President that we can fix, all these problems.
Okay. Next question. Do you support the requirement for election authorities to provide reports on voting equipment? And if so, how often?
Yes, and as often as it needs to be done. I mean, one of the most important things of our society is the integrity of the vote. To make sure people who can vote should be voting, make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get to the votes, and when your votes are cast, that they get counted properly. Otherwise, we're no different than many of the other places in the world that don't have democracies and good elections.
Should the
Do I get
state,
extra time for that one?
should the state allow funds to be used to buy teachers guns?
Well, there's all kinds of controversies with this. In general, I've talked to many of my friends and patients in law enforcement. They don't think the teachers should be armed because they're not properly trained. I think the people who carry guns, especially to protect others and protect our society, the police, the FBI, security guards, those type of things, they go through a lot of training, and it's ongoing training. I think our teachers are busy enough just kind of keeping up with, getting things in the classroom. My feeling is, in talking with people who are more expert in those things than I am, and that's what I do, is if I'm not expert in something, I go to experts that I know, is that, no, I don't think that would be a good idea, because I don't know if they'd have the ability to keep up with the necessary training.
Are you in favor of legalizing marijuana for recreational use? Explain your position.
Another real controversial question. So we at Elmhurst Hospital actually have started an integrative medicine program, and as you guys know, and it's been in the papers, the opioid epidemic is a huge problem in our area. In the United States alone, over 99 people die per day from opioid. I'll bet everyone in this room knows somebody that's been afflicted by it or lost. One of my son's dear friends has died from it. One of our neighbors has had problems with it. I mean, this is a problem that goes through all socioeconomic groups, all backgrounds. And so we have an opioid task force, and we basically are working through the problems through our hospital to help with awareness, instructing doctors on how to take care of things. Dovetailing from that, marijuana can be used for pain, and there's a lot of different ways, and so I'm in favor of that. For medical marijuana, it's been shown to be helpful to alleviate the need for opioids, and I think that could alleviate some of the problems. Personally, when they ask what do I believe for recreational use, I'm not a big fan of that as a physician. I've seen it also as a gateway drug, and I see people that go on. I know there's a lot of people that say, well, it's never going to develop into that, but I think that's dangerous, and I think that needs a little more study. So at this time, I'm in favor of medical marijuana where it's been proven to show that it's helpful, and I'm not in favor of recreational marijuana at this time. But I would look at studies. I mean, I'm very data-based, and if down the road somebody could show that it's not causing any ill effects, I would consider it.
Okay. I've been asked to remind the audience to refrain from taking pictures and videos. We do have a videographer here, and you will be able to get this off the Facebook page. Next question. How do you propose to protect environmental laws and regulations from the Trump administration's dismantling?
Right. So, I'm the Republican candidate, so and if any of you've gotten any of my flyers, my opponent with Mike Madigan money of over $1.3 million is planning on about 32 mayors. I was not endorsed by our Republican Party in the primary. I was not endorsed by our governor. I was not endorsed by the Addison Republican Township, which was the only township in our district that did an endorsement. Now, I got a lot of support from many of the people in the Republican Party, and we actually won with 80% of the vote. But that had to do with the fact that I'm an independent-minded person and I've been a part of the community. What a lot of people also don't know is before my park district days, I spent 5 years on the Environmental Commission in Glen Ellyn, and that's not typical of a Republican, right? I also helped write the asbestos rules on safe removal of asbestos in our area, and also was involved in all our recycle events. In fact, I was the one who started our recycle events way back when, and so I'm very keen on the environment because as a physician, I've seen what the environment can do to someone's health. And if we can't have a healthy environment, that's number one priority. So I'm a big fan of that, and I'll continue that. And I'm also a Republican, so there are a lot of Republicans that care about the environment.
What, if any, steps should Illinois take to reform current immigration policies?
So Illinois, so just specifically in Illinois. Okay, so, we have laws that are federal laws. We have state laws. There are certain state statutes that can't be trounced upon by the federal government. There are also certain laws of the federal government that basically supersede the state. In other words, we are a federal group of states, a federation, a representative republic. And so we have kind of rules to go by. Sometimes you disagree with them, and sometimes, quite frankly, they're not perfect, and sometimes there should be exceptions to every rule. But I still think we need to hash that out at the level based on our elected representatives who are supposedly representing our democratic people. And so I go along pretty much with what the group of legislators decide on as far as the rules to follow.
Okay. How would you encourage job growth in the state of Illinois?
Well, one of the big problems is, the economy is doing better, and of course Illinois is lagging every surrounding state. In fact, last I saw a chart of all the bond ratings, which kind of is a report card of financial health of the state. And all the other states are up here, and there's a bunch of blank spaces. And then Illinois is all by itself down at the bottom. And it's almost at what's called junk bond category. We're just one level up from it. And there's no reason for that. As I talked about before, we had a booming economy. I mean, I grew up here, I'm sure many of you guys did. In the 1960s, 70s, 80s, it was just go in Illinois. We were a very prosperous place. The problem we have is we have poor stewardship in Springfield. And that's what we need to do. That's my solution, is get rid of Mike Madigan and the single-party Democrat rule. Everybody says, well, how can you get rid of him? The guy's in his mid to late 70s. If we can win a few seats in our seat, which is all we need, he's no longer Speaker of the House, and he's not running the show as a solitary single party. And then I think we can have some give and take. And I think we can get our economy going again.
Do you have a position on women's right to choose?
Yes, I'm pro-life. If a woman is raped, if I think she has a right to choose to end that. So I'm not a purist like some are. Again, I'm a physician. A fetus, for now, in Illinois, a fetus that's 1 day for being born, with 1 foot out the womb, completely viable, should not be destroyed. And that's about, to me, the same as going into a nursery and taking a kid out of the bassinet because you say, I decide I don't want to have a kid. I think women have a choice. Women have a choice not to get pregnant. They have a choice to end their pregnancy early on. They have a choice to adopt. They have a lot of choices, but no one has a choice to take a viable live human and destroy it, because those are viable individuals at a certain point. And you can argue back and forth But that's the medical fact of the matter.
What is the long-term solution to balancing the state budget?
The long-term solution is getting rid of Mike Madigan, the one-party system. You know, when I started at the Park District, we had a relatively balanced budget, but on occasion they would have to take money from what are called fund balances. By the time I was done, you know, I won by a landslide in my second election. By the way, I term limited myself out after 2 terms, even though things were going really good at the Park District. But in our last budget that I was involved with, we had a $12 million budget and we had a $1 million surplus. So I didn't find it that hard to do either. We got rid of some company cars, we did bidding. When we have more time than all these 15-second answers, I can go through and chronicle all the waste that we basically fixed. And that happens in all areas of small government, all the way to state government, all the way to federal government. You just need some people with some common sense in there, and it can be done.
What's your proposal for dealing with pension reform?
Okay, so that's another chart that if you ever want to like a real visual. Most of the states around us are completely funded with their pensions. They have no pension debt. They can pay all their pensioners. We're at about $110 billion now. That's a lot of money. That's unless we change something, Armageddon is coming with what our pension debt is. We've already seen some examples with places like Harvey, Illinois, where they had a pension, a fire and police pension, where they had $1 million coming in per year with $25 million going out, and they're broke. The people of Harvey said, we're just not going to be able to pay these pensions, and then the state legislature said, well, wait a minute, it's in our Constitution. So they said, okay, we'll pay them. Now we just cut the police force, the fire department, and cut all the services. And where is that going to go? Well, it's going to happen in East St. Louis pretty soon, and about 20 other municipalities in probably the next year. So we've got problems, and we need people with real solutions to be down there to get these things fixed. You know, it's fun to be in power and, you know, have all the committees and you know, run the show like the Mike Madigans of the world. But the problem is they're kind of screwing everything up. And we kind of need some people that know what they're doing down there to start fixing things.
Okay, the last couple of questions. One, are you in favor of the progressive income tax?
No, you know, one of the other problems with Illinois with high property taxes, and now we just had a 32% hike in our income tax last year, which by the way has all been spent. You know, that was supposed to have money set aside from that huge 32% income tax hike to start paying all these bills. You know, I'm a physician. I have not got paid for like taking care of a state trooper for about 2.5 years. What the state of Illinois sends me is a 30-cent check in the mail and a 50-cent stamp. And what they do is they have to pay interest on like the $70 bill that they haven't paid for 2.5 years. Now I got to pay my employees and things, but I have enough other income that we can kind of keep going. But I tell the state of Illinois, I go, don't even send it, donate it, because save the 50-cent stamp and your 30-cent interest, because the bank charged me $1 to cash the check. So, but this is the state of affairs in Illinois. What was the gist of that question? What was that?
Progressive income tax.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I don't want to seem like I'm sidestepping. She asked it again, so I'm going to give you my 30 seconds. About 50,000 people in the last couple of years have left Illinois net. And there's a huge number that have leaving Illinois. These are people that have businesses that pay income taxes. The only way we're going to grow ourselves out of the debt, the hole we're in, the only way we're going to be able to come close to paying off this $100 billion pension debt is for people to come in and stay and work. And so you do a progressive income tax, and I can tell you, there's some people that already have one foot out the door of our state, and they're just hanging on. If we win this election and we show there's maybe hope for a little reform, hopefully they don't leave, you sock them with an 11%, 12% tax on top of 3% of their home value tax, which is the highest in the United States. It's going to be real hard to generate the tax base to pay out those pay those bills.
Okay, last question before your final statement.
Okay.
Do you support term limits for House and Senate seats in Illinois?
Absolutely. You know, I term limited myself out at the hospital. I was the president of our medical staff. I was the chief of surgery. I always stepped down because, you know what? The guys behind me were just as good as I was, and I firmly believe that. In the Park District, you know, it was a fun job, I could have stayed, but there were other people in our community that could do just as good a job as me. So I believe when our founding fathers had this great idea called America, they meant for there to be a rotation. So I would firmly do that, and even if it isn't a law, I'm going to abide by it myself.
Okay, I invite you to make your final statement.
So, again, my name is Jay Kinzler. I'm running for District 46. I was glad to get to cover a few things. One of the other things that's a big problem is, you know, this job is a part-time job as a legislature, and we have one of the most generous pension programs anywhere in the country. In other words, most of our legislators, after 8 years, become millionaires. They'll get anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 a year to the rest of their life, and if they live 40 or 50 years, that's a lot of money. That's $2.5 to $3.5 million. I've taken a pledge, both in writing and on video, that I will not take a legislative pension if elected, because I don't think I deserve a pension for a part-time job for something where I'm representing my fellow residents. That comes from taxpayers that are just struggling day to day. I've been going door to door for the last year. We also give people their little tax reports on what their home value is and how much they pay in taxes. I was in Glendale Heights just last weekend. I go to these townhouses. The people are barely getting by. They have little kids. They have a car that looks like it's 25 years old. And their house or their townhome value started at $300,000, went to $200,000. It's now like $125,000. It's criminal. And they're paying $6,000, $7,000 a year in property tax. We list on the side what this same property would cost in any other state. California, it'd be like $400, Wisconsin, $500, Indiana, $600. These people are suffering. And you know, I look at Mike Madigan and these guys, supposedly they're the heroes of the poor and the downtrodden. I think what they're doing to these people is a crime, and I think they should be replaced because I just don't think it's right. And that's why I'm going to run. I'm going to keep running hard, and I plan on winning this thing. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzler.